Welcome to a new episode of the Lgct Grand Prix analysis, where we look into the interesting technicalities of the 9th Grand Prix of the season. It was the return for Grégory Baudot in Paris, who had already worked on the difficult arena in Saint-Tropez with a straight slope. Now he had dome-shaped arena on the Champ de Mars at his disposal. Now, looking at his statistics throughout the entire weekend, one can truly say that he had mastered the ring in Paris. And with all those technicalities at hand, let's not wait any longer. Welcome to the Lgct Grand Prix analysis. Grégory Baudot had built a course with lots of related distances, typical to a tight and boxy arena like the one in Paris at the Champ de Mars. You had 6 strides into the triple combination, 5 strides in the last line from the Auxerre to Auxerre. You had 3 strides and 4 strides in different lines. So one would not think that the first real technical line, the first real related distance, would bring up so much problems. That was a line where normally you would ride or walk 8 strides, but that played out completely different. Have a look, for example, in the first technical line at the performance of Berlin Grand Prix winner at Sergio Moya. Moya came over the Eiffel Tower structure and then very late added a stride to this upright of the Paris Metro that put him on his first 4 very early already at fence 3. And that story continued, especially in the beginning of the Grand Prix. Julien Anquetin, for example. The Frenchman on Blood Diamond had already won the big class on day 1. And also Anquetin, just like Moya, right here decides very late to add the stride and go for the 9. But also look how that Blood Diamond Dupont cuts the corner. Look at how he comes to the left, deep into the corner, and jumps towards the Eiffel Tower and puts Julien Anquetin on 4. At that point, no French rider had qualified for the jump-off just yet. That was Julien Anquetin and Sergio Moya, who added the stride in the first line. Now, there were also alternatives, people who got their 9 strides much earlier. For example, Jur Vrieling on Fiumicino van de Kalevallee. Jur Vrieling has seen what had happened to the others. So Vrieling starts earlier with riding his 9 strides. It comes with a low pace to the upright. And we'll talk about it specifically why that was so difficult on a low pace, but also Vrieling couldn't get the height over the vertical of Paris Metro. Those were examples of riders who got there on the 9 strides, what in the end seemed to be the extra stride. But there's also an approach on 8, of course. And it's Brian Maugré who explains us why the others went on 9 and not on 8. Maugré on a big striding MTM Vivre le Rêve comes a little bit more on the inside line, as you can see on this camera angle. And with the 8, just a fraction. Is it deep? Is it off the hind leg? We'll tell you in a minute what happens there and why it really happened. That's Brian Maugré on 8. The others came on 9, and there is one more example of nearly a 7, nearly 7.5, that is shown by the lady who in the end would finish 2nd in the Grand Prix. That's Lily Atwood on Corleone van Vlierbeek Z. Atwood picks up the pace as she comes through the turn, where Vrieling reduces, and look at that, half a step there, nearly to that vertical of the Paris Metro. It's a big rub as well on the top rail, but it is a clear, and Lily Atwood would in the end go on to proceed into the jump-off of this Grand Prix. Now, we've shown you some examples, but let's also have a look at what it looked like on the course design, or that Grégory Baudot had produced. This is the ring on the Champ de Mars, and we're specifically talking about this line from the Auxerre on the bend to the upright. Now, there's a lot to say about this line. First of all, as you can see, there's not much room between the vertical and the LED boarding. That is the reason why, for example, Blood Diamond or Julien Anquetin cut the corner. He wanted to stay away from the LED boarding. Now, also, that line is built on the downhill slope. This is pretty much the highest point of the ring. And for the rest, it all runs down towards the edges of the arena, and this is a long downhill slope. And of course, that is why Grégory Baudot has positioned that fence right at that spot, from the Auxerre on the downhill slope and then to the vertical. It always walked as 8 strides, but most of it rode it on the 9 because they didn't want to leave their horse a little bit unsupported off the hind leg. They wanted to keep the horse well on the hind leg, well balanced. with the potential to give room to the upright. And that's the room that Urvieling actually gave to Fiumicino, the room that nor Anquetin and Moya could find. They wanted to give him a little bit of room to their horses so they could get a nice jump and a nice shape over the upright. And if you would get there slightly off the hind leg on the downhill slope on 8 strides, you would get a much flatter jump, as we had, for example, seen from Brian Mowbray. That is the positioning of the fence. The downhill slope, also a very delicate fence, as you have seen. There's just 2 rails, a little bit of filling underneath, not much wings. It is truly a typical modern style course building material, modern style fences. Well, we've shown you the faults. There's 2 more rounds that we actually want to show you. One of them is the round of Penelope Le Prévost, the French champion and former Lgct Grand Prix winner. Le Prévost in Texas has her 9 early. It's not the biggest striding horse, this Texas, and that makes it much more easier for Penelope Le Prévost to get the stride well balanced, to make the steps fit into the line, to make those 9 and the measures, the meters, fit nicely up to the upright. That was Penelope Le Prévost. Now that happens if you have a horse with somewhat of a shorter stride. If you have to go chasing for the 8, you surely would get a flat jump. So that is why the 9 were the perfect option for Penelope Le Prévost. Now what if you have a big striding horse? Then you have to come up with a different plan. And the plan starts with a short jump over the first oxer at 2. If you get a short jump there, you don't have much pace into the next line, you don't land deep into the next line, and maybe that way you can get the 9 strides in nicely. And that's what Isabella Ruskov tried to do on jump